Welcome back to the channel. Today we have the Audi A1 and we will be changing our rear pads and discs today. So this is slightly different to the front pads and discs. I'll be doing another video how to do the front ones, but this is the rear set. So yeah, stay tuned for the video and I hope you find it useful. So our first step for changing the pads and discs actually starts in our engine bay. So this cap here is our brake reservoir. We need to disconnect that cap or take it off just so that when we compress our calipers we do not reverse any of the seals, because that's the worst thing that we could probably do. So just undo the cap and just place it back on top, because we'll be tightening that back up later, but we don't want any dirt or grime to get in there. Our next step is to jack up the back of the car and remove our wheel. As soon as the wheel's removed, then we'll take the handbrake off so that this disc can rotate nice and freely. It's quite important for later, otherwise we won't be able to take our disc off. So the next steps is to remove our actual caliper. Up at the top here, try and move it around the back, we've got our 13mm socket and a 15mm spanner on here, just so that we will take the bolt out the back so we can fully remove our caliper assembly. This will then give us access to take our caliper carrier off and remove the disc. I've loosened off these back bolts, so my spanner will just sitting in here, 15mm spanner, sitting on there supporting whilst I take these off with my 13mm socket. We'll do the same on the bottom that I've already loosened off. As soon as we're fully loose, then we'll be able to take our caliper assembly off. A little bit difficult with one hand. Okay, now that our caliper has been moved to one side, we can now get our pads out. So what I'm going to do is just get a pry bar in there, just in the back, just try and pry these out. They seem to be fully rusted in. There we are. So our next step, once we have eventually anchored our pads out, is to then take our caliper carrier off. This is held in place by two 8mm bolts, one there and one down at the bottom. See if I can get a better image on it. So you can see our caliper carrier here. We've got one bolt just up in here and we've got another one just up at the top. They're 8mm bolts, so take them off and you'll be able to get your caliper carrier off. And as easy as that. Just roll, undo your, take the ratchet off. Take the caliper carrier bolts out. Took a bit of grunt to get them off. But try not to round the holes out or snap the bolts. There's one. Just get the ratchet on that for the last one down there. So, carrier bracket has been removed, which means that we can now have free access to take our disc off, which should just be a T30. So T30, just remove the little grub screw and then keep that safe if you don't have a spare, and then you should just be able to, with a bit of persuasion, our trusty friend the hammer, disc completely removed. So now you can inspect your wheel hub, you can then retract the caliper as well. Your rear calipers, they're not just straight pushbacks, you have to twist them in. So we've got our setup here, we've got our two studs on our caliper retraction tool with our spacer. So you set it up as follows. You get your studs located and you screw the nut out to the back until it all becomes rigid. As soon as it's rigid, then start twisting. As this twists, caliper should start retracting. This caliper is on its way out anyway because it's got splits in the boot. If it doesn't go one way, then it will definitely go the other. But this one seems to be going in this way. And keep on going until it just stops. now that it stops, get your 22mm spanner on the nut, just to wind it in a little bit. If it's a little bit tough, this one's fairly loose. Take your tool out, and now you're ready to accept the pads. Now that we have retracted our piston, we're ready to reassemble. Now what your best bet is to give all of this a bit of a rub down. This wheel bearing seems to be quite clean. So just going to, as soon as you wipe down the disc with like lint-free cloth and some alcohol-based wipe, like brake cleaner, and you can start reassembling. So a little bit difficult with one hand, however, it's not the first time. Before we pop our carrier assembly in, we need to take out our slide-in pins so we can clean them up and lubricate them. So these are held in by a bit of seal. Should just be a straight pull to remove these bolts. Do look quite clean, but we're going to give them a wipe down. So we're still using our multi-purpose suspension grease. Literally just going to dip these boys in, get them nice and lubricated, because we do not want to be doing this in halves. Straight in there. Beautiful. Ready to go back in the carrier. So they're literally just straight push back in. Get them back in, and then it automatically seals themselves, which is a lovely little feature. Now we're ready to pop these back on to where our caliper sits so we can get our pads in. Getting our bolts in the top and bottom, and we're going to tighten them up until they won't move anymore, because it's brakes and we want to get them nice and tight. Time to pop our pads in. Now you notice how we've got these little nibs here that sit on these rails just in here. What we're going to do is just get a little bit of copper grease onto the edge of the pads. Pop a little bit in the channels just to stop them from binding up. Chance to get any on the disc as well. If you do, then you can just wipe it off, but it's not ideal. Now all the pads do, simply snap in. But I need two hands to move the caliper out of the way and support it. Okay, so now that our pads are firmly planted in there, we're going to make sure our springs sit square. We're just going to slide our caliper over the top and push it on. Might take a little bit of encouragement, and push your slider pins in as well, because these slider pins won't accommodate it otherwise. And you should just be able to wriggle it on. But it keeps them pushing out because of the springs. So as soon as you push this on, you try and locate one of your top pins with that 13mm, but it will fit. So as we can see now, all this is set in. We've got our top bolt in, we've got our bottom bolt in as well. Just need to tighten them up, and then should be ready to pop the wheel back on. And the final thing to do, refit our brake reservoir cap. Make sure it's nice and tight. As you get into the vehicle the first time, just pump the brakes up, just out when they're solid, so your handbrake can operate efficiently. And thanks for watching the video. I hope you found it useful. For more episodes on the Audi A1, then please do check out the channel and like and subscribe whilst you're there, if that's not too much bother. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.